storm thing
Yeah.
that prevented us from meeting. And then we had Oktoberfest, obviously. But hopefully tonight we can get back into the swing of things the way it should be. Now, if you can remember all the way back to the last time we met, we were in chapter 8. And we ended in verse 7. But I don't think it's going to do us justice if we just jump back into that passage and try to remember what we were doing. So let's like we always do some type of a review before we get going. What have we learned in Revelation? Start out with the basics.
It was written by John.
It was written by John, the beloved disciple, right? John the Apostle. What else?
It was written in prophetic.
It was a prophetic book, meaning it's things that have not happened yet. And it had not happened, obviously, at that time either.
It was written in the 90s AD.
That's right. It was written in the 90s, approximately 95 AD, which stands for Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. We've talked about the number 7 multiple times. What is the number 7?
Completely.
Completion and perfection.
Yeah, the number 7 is the number of completion. And we're going to talk more about that tonight because it's going to come up again. We've talked about the lampstands. What were the lampstands symbolic of? The 7 churches. How many were there?
7.
Imagine that, right? We talked about the shofar. What was the shofar?
The horn.
Ooh, right? It's the...
The ram's horn.
There you go, ram's horn. They did it to announce things. They did it when kings were appointed. And we're going to hear more about that tonight. It's going to come up again. Okay? We talked about what Jesus looked like to John in all of his glory. You guys remember what he looked like?
White hair.
I can guarantee you he's not the frail-looking guy you see in the Catholic pictures, right? What did he look like?
White robe.
Okay?
White hair.
White hair.
Beggar.
No?
He had the priest's robe.
Okay.
Bronze.
Fearless. That's right. He had eyes of fire. Right?
He looked awesome.
He looked awesome. He looked like a wrestler, right? No, don't remember that. No, but he looked amazing. He looked resurrected. He looked as John saw him in all his glory. Yes, ma'am.
And a tattoo on his thigh.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. He did. He had it written on his thigh, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, right? And what's that? Feet of bronze, that's right, absolutely. What did bronze represent? Judgment, good job. What were the churches? We talked about 7 churches. It's been a while. Smyrna, what? Sardis? Philadelphia?
Thyatira.
Ephesus? Starts with an E, good. Thyatira? Laodicea? One more. Pergamum, that's right. All right, good job. We learned different things about these cities, both the good things and the bad things that they were doing. Jesus chastised them for what they were doing wrong, and he lauded them when they were doing things well. We saw that there were 4 beings, 4 living beings. What did they look like? They had eyes all over them, right? One had a face of an eagle. What else?
The
Human,
ox.
an ox,
A man.
and a lion. Good job. Almost like Chinese zodiac, right? Don't remember that. All right. But what did these represent? What did the lion represent?
Gospel.
Well, they all 4 represented the gospel. So what did the lion specifically represent? Christ as a king, right? Ox as a servant. An eagle as the Holy Spirit, right? Above everything. And then, of course, the human being as Christ came as a human. You guys didn't remember that part, huh? So there were also 24 guys hanging around. What were they?
The elders.
The elders, right? And there were sitting in smaller thrones around God's main throne, right? And then we have God. And we have God the Father, and then we have the Lamb. What was in the Father's hand?
Scroll.
The scroll, right. And what is on the scroll?
Judgment. Oh, the
Judgment, that's right. How many judgments?
7.
7 seals. Ooh, look, number 7. What do you know? Which hand is he holding it in?
Right hand.
Why?
Strength.
Power. That's right. Right is the hand of power, hand of strength. Okay? And then we hear the voice of an angel who says what?
Who is worthy?
Who is worthy to open the scroll? And
The elders cried.
the elders cried, hide and watch your lamps, as we said. I'm kidding. Don't remember that. But who appears? Jesus. And he is what?
The lamb.
A slaughtered lamb. He does. And he has authority. What kind of authority does he have? Moral
And legal.
and legal authority, because he is of the lineage of David, of the throne of David. And of course, he was the only perfect human being, right? He stepped forward and he took the scroll, right?
Yep.
And the 24 elders and the 4 living beings fell down before him in praise. And then John heard the voices of millions of angels praising Jesus. Right? You guys remember all that?
Yep.
And then the bad stuff comes.
Yep.
We start to open the seals, right? Chapter 6. That's when Christ begins breaking the seals on the scroll. What happens?
Beasts.
The horsemen, how many were there?
4.
The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as they are commonly called, and they come out one at a time. First comes white, represents the gospel going around the earth. Representation of Jesus. The red comes next. What does red represent?
War.
War. War, blood. Right? Just rage. Slaughter. How about the black? Death, but more importantly, both of those. Yes, famine, social dysfunction or social loss of social structure. Okay, where everything collapses, which is very possible, believe it or not. And then the green, what is the green or pale horse? Death, disease, right? And that's the rotting of human flesh, the representation of the green. And we said that, there we go. I'm way ahead of myself. And we talked about how each one represented something in the relation of what was happening on earth. Okay, if you remember, the red was war coming, right? And second was world collapse. Third was the death of so many people and disease moving around the earth, right? And then we started talking about the judgments and the wrath of God, which came after that. How there would be earthquakes and meteors falling from the sky. We talked about chaos and government collapse. How everyone, the powerful and the rich included, were hiding in caves, hoping that the rocks would fall on them because it was so bad. They were terrified. But then the angels held the judgment of God back from the 4 corners of the earth. Do you remember that? And why did they do that? That's right, so that the Christians could receive the seal of God, which was contrary to what? The mark of the beast. That's right. Okay, I know it's a lot to remember. That's why we're going over it. All right, how many were sealed?
144,000.
144,000. Right? And we said that that was the remnant of Israel. Those who were of the lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel, and how they would be the remnant. And they would become believers. And we went through all the 12 tribes, if you remember. And we asked, well, how did we get there? My answer was, I have no idea. But it's not up to me. I'm not on the planning committee for that. So then, we start to get over to chapter 8. Things start to slow down a bit. The Lamb breaks the 7th seal. And there was silence in heaven for how long?
No,
A half hour. We don't remember, we don't know what the significance of the half hour is. All we know, it was a moment of pause to recognize what was happening. Because, guys, all hell is about to break loose. Literally. And the prayers of God's people were mixed with incense as an offering. Okay? And that's where we stop. In verse 4, the smoke of the incense mixed with the prayers of God's holy people ascended to God from the altar where the angel had poured them out. So I want you to envision this. Okay? We know that God keeps our prayers, right? We've talked about that. So here we are. This incense holder, which was called a censer, by the way, if you wanted to know. A censer. It was holding the prayers and the incense, and it was given as an offering before God. And I want you to see what happens next. So literally, it is given to God as an offering. The prayers and the incense is poured out. Somebody read verse 5.
Then the angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it on the earth. And there were peals of thunder, loud noises, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake.
Okay, so the prayers of God's people were just emptied onto the altar. A lot of people, I don't know if I believe this personally or not, but a lot of people believe that that was symbolic of there will be no more prayers to God after this. Okay? And it was filled with fire from the altar, which is perfection, right? Because we know that fire is what brings things down. That's where the dross comes from, and we can scoop the dross out of it, right? That's how gold is purified. And we purify things with fire. That's why Christ was looking upon everything with fire in his eyes, okay? And he threw it down to the earth. How does that happen? I don't know. Maybe it's a large meteor, okay? Maybe it's a nuclear weapon. I don't know. But what I do know is that when it happened, lightning flash, thunder crash, and there was a terrible earthquake. Now, we think of earthquakes kind of like California, right? Everybody, moves around a little bit, and then maybe a building falls, and then we're back to normal, right? The kind of earthquake that we're talking about splits things apart. Okay? Literally separates the earth. Okay? And that's what an earthquake is. It's a fault line separating on the plates of the plate tectonics, right? And again, according to some of the commentaries I read, there are many Bible teachers who believe the angel used this because it was no longer going to hold prayer. Interesting to think of. As if the remaining judgments were released on the earth, the prayers of who remain will no longer be heard. Because this is God's judgment coming upon everybody who remains on earth. Remember, those who've been saved have been brought up. Right? The martyrs have died. But verse 5 is telling us that this is the last thing that happens in heaven before the trumpet judgments begin. I told you that the shofar was going to come up again. Well, it's coming up tonight. Okay? And every time the trumpet is blown or the shofar was blown, something happened. Okay? Remember, this is the seventh seal. So in the prior verse, the smoke rising from the altars, from the burnt incense that represented the prayers of God's people. Now, here we are. Somebody read verse. Hold on, don't read that yet. The eighth angel filled the incense burning with fire from the altar. Altar represents sacrifice from the sinners, and fire represents pure judgment. Right? We just talked about that. When it hits the earth, there's loud thunder, streaks of lightning, earthquake. These precede the seven trumpet judgments. These occurrences must truly cause earth's inhabitants to tremble. You know, as we were going through the hurricane, let's use this as an example. We're watching it on the news, right? Everybody? trumpet blast.
So the
Verse
last-
6.
So
Go
the
ahead.
last time that the trumpet sounded was the rapture.
That's right.
So to hear another trumpet sound,
You know something's
And
happening.
why did the trumpet sound?
to tell everybody that.
Something's gonna happen.
that Jesus
Something's
is-
going to happen. Get ready in preparation. And this time, remember, we said that the trumpet blast was used for a different thing. To announce a king. For the start of Holy Week, right? And here, it's announcing God's judgment upon the earth. You know? The 7 angels with the 7 trumpets. How many?
Seven.
Interesting. Prepared to blow their mighty blast. Now,
Premise for John to do this so that from his perspective, so that everybody know, look.
this is what you
this
should be
is
looking
what-
for.
This is what's gonna happen.
That's right. You may not know the time, but you'll know the season.
Right.
Okay, so here we are. 7 angels are holding 7 trumpets, prepared to blow them. Now, we don't know whether John saw them, like, preparing, right? Like, the band brings it up at the football game, right? I don't know if that's literal or what. But regardless, there was preparation. Okay? It was done in preparation to God's judgments coming. Okay? Now, this may symbolize, according to some teachers, that there's always preparation needed before doing God's will. Again, I don't know if I agree with that. Sometimes I think teachers look for things to teach, but I'm going to share it with you just in case I'm wrong. Okay? It may symbolize there's always preparation needed. Moses prepared to lead the people of Israel through the Negev after years of shepherding, right? Joshua, prepared to lead the Hebrews into the promised land, was commanded to meditate upon and obey God's word. Jesus prepared for his work of redemption by praying. He went out for how long? 40 days, right? The disciples prepared for the task of proclaiming the gospel. I mean, there was always preparation when something is going to happen as a result of God doing things, right? The Apostle Paul. I don't know if you guys know this, but Paul went into the desert for 3 years. Did you know that? When you read Scripture, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like Paul gets saved and then all of a sudden he's teaching. No, he goes out and he's in the desert for 3 years. 3 years. You know? Again, I personally think these Bible teachers might be reading into what's happening to find meaning, but I could be wrong. Regardless, the trumpets are blown to symbolize or to indicate God is about to do something big. Let's see what happens. Somebody read verse 7.
The first angel blew his trumpet. The first angel blew his trumpet, and hail and fire mixed with blood was thrown down on the earth. 1/3 of the earth was set on fire. 1/3 of the trees were burned, and all the green grass was burned.
Okay, so the trumpet sounds, the shofar is blown, and hail and fire mixed with blood are thrown down to the earth. Couple of questions. What does that sound like?
Meteors.
Could be. What does that sound like in relation to what we know about what's happened in the past? Sounds a lot like the judgments upon Egypt, doesn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
You guys remember that? It sounds a lot like that. So, hail and fire, yes, could be meteors, could be golf ball size, softball size hail, we don't know. But here's something weird. There's blood being thrown down to the earth. What would blood do?
Contaminate.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. We're going to talk more about this because water's going to turn to blood again, much like what happened in the judgment. But I want you to recognize that blood contaminates things, okay? And it makes them worthless, all right? And it kills them, and it spreads disease. So when you look at hail, hail's going to put dents in your forehead, right? Fire is going to burn you and blood is going to contaminate you. This is a bad judgment. And listen, it's raining down on the earth. It doesn't say one part of the earth. It says on the earth. Can you imagine what the reporters are thinking? Jim Cantori's going to have his hands full. But listen to this. 1/3 of the earth was set on fire, probably because of these meteors or these atomic bombs or whatever it is that's coming down. 1/3 of the earth. We think the California wildfires are bad. 1/3 of the earth. And all the animals and all the people that are left that are still there are going to die with that. 1/3 of the trees were burned and all the green grass was burned. Now, some interpreters speculate that the earth refers to the land of Israel, and it specifically is the object of God's judgment. I don't agree with that, but that's my opinion. Okay? I believe if it said earth, it means earth. But again, you can have your own opinion. Along those lines, they also interpret the trees to mean Israel's apostate leaders, and the grass to mean Israel as spiritually weak nation. I think he's talking about trees and grass. Okay? Again, I'm just going to teach you what other people are saying. I personally don't subscribe to this. I believe it's talking more about plant life and crops. That's what I think.
That's stuff we need to live.
That's exactly right. What happens if we don't have oxygen? We talked about that on Saturday, right?
You're gonna die.
Okay? They base these interpretations, though, on Isaiah 2, which compares proud leaders to cedars and oaks, and Isaiah 40, that compares flesh to grass that withers. So I can see how they got there. You can believe what you want. It doesn't matter either way. Okay? I personally think, again, that he's talking about the earth. If it's the earth, then again, we're seeing here that it's just like what happened in Egypt during the plague. Guys, what happened during the plague? Talk to me about what happened.
People died.
People died?
Lots and lots of bodies, and then it was started.
What kind of plagues were there?
It was torture.
There
Just
was
torture?
the frogs.
The frogs, right? What would the frogs have done? They all died, remember? You got a stench and just piles of frog,
The flies.
right? The flies,
The boils.
the boils.
Yeah.
And what was the last one?
The first
No.
The firstborn.
The firstborn. That's where the Passover came
Yeah,
from,
That's where the
right?
Pharaoh lost his son.
And I want you to think about something. That was just a small picture of what's going to happen on that. It's a small picture. And who knows, maybe God gave us that years ago so that we could have some type of a reference. You know? But each time, Pharaoh hardened his heart, right?
Yeah.
And I think to myself, how is that possible, bro? Right? You just had frogs all over your living room. How are you going to go? I don't care. But listen to me. That's what the people on earth are going to still be like.
We're there now.
They're here now. That's exactly right. They're voting in our election. But the point is that people have stayed the same throughout history. Okay? People will still thumb their nose at God even though they see His miraculous power. The hail struck down every plant, broke every tree. So, there's a good reason to interpret what happens in the first trumpet judgment as literal, which is the way I personally interpret it. So, again, what specific way this is done, we don't know. It could be volcanic, right? It could be a volcano, and all these little things coming down, ash and burning up 1/3 of the earth. It could be a meteor strike. Whatever it is, it's horrific. And it's physical. Again, the target seems to be plant life, crops, and this level of destruction would cripple world food supply. So, think about this. A lot of our food, by the way, that we get in Publix or we get in Winn-Dixie, it's not even grown in Florida. Do you guys know that? We have stuff, we have our own beautiful oranges, yet that's all shipped out and we bring stuff in from South America. I don't understand. But the point is there's a huge food chain. There's a huge food trade that's going through all of the world. And if crops get hit, a third of crops get hit around the earth, that's going to disrupt everything. I mean, big time. We think that when there's a freeze, you hear about it on the news, right? There's a freeze, so oranges are going to be more expensive. They're going to be 50 cents instead of a quarter. Whatever. But in this case, a third is going to be destroyed. All right? It also, yeah?
Worldwide famine.
Worldwide famine, yeah. It also would disrupt economics and it would destabilize society. Okay? So if governments are not already toppled in areas, it's going to topple them. Okay? And again, we know that now the Antichrist is on the scene trying to create one world government, one world religion, everything. And so this is a big hindrance into his plan. Okay? But it would, think about it this way too. The loss of all of that would also restrict food supplies for animals. Animals are in our diet. So this isn't just, hey, we lost fruits and vegetables, sucks to be a vegan, right? This is, hey, there's no food to feed my cattle, right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse with a third of it gone. Less oxygen, absolutely. Not only that, there's smoke everywhere, right? I mean, a third of the world. Somebody read verse 8 for me.
Then the second angel blew his trumpet
And hold on, right there. As soon as that was blown, what do you think everybody's doing?
Panic.
Did you hear that? Right? All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Then the second angel blew his trumpet, and a great mountain of fire was thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the water in the sea became blood.
Okay. A great mountain of fire was thrown into the sea. Now, the meteors or the fire coming from heaven could have been precursors to this. Again, it could be a nuclear bomb going on. But I want you to think of what would happen if something. Okay, so you guys have seen those places on the earth where meteors have crashed, right? And we know that nuclear winters happen as a result of that. And all life dies. It's like that. And it hits the water, right? And we think, oh, that's good. It's away from us. No. Right? Imagine what comes from that.
Tsunami.
Tsunami, what else? How does it mess the water? It kills everything. Right? And I want you to think of this. 1/3 of the water in the sea. Notice it says the sea. Okay? It's important to know that because something else is going to happen soon. Because they're not talking about the Earth's water supply yet. The water in the sea became blood. What does blood do? Now, if you think the first one was bad, all life in the ocean is dying. The food chain in the ocean. I don't like the way fish smell when they're alive. Okay? I can't imagine what kind of muck and mire and death and whatever else is coming out of that water. Think about it.
Rotten shrimp.
Right? It won't be edible. And it'll kill everything around it. The earth will just reek.
Well, and think about the temperature change of the water. So,
It's going to affect the environment.
so yeah, it absolutely changes an entire ecosystem, not just in the water, but also the weather patterns.
Everything.
We see it here when the water in the Gulf is hotter weather pattern change.
Yeah, we get these things called hurricanes. I want you to think about something. How vulnerable did you feel during the storm? How vulnerable?
Depends on if you're awake or not.
Yeah, but the point is,
Slept like a baby.
so when storms happen, when tornadoes happen, when we are on the receiving end of a natural disaster, we feel vulnerable. I don't care who you are. That's why we're watching it. We feel vulnerable. Now imagine that times 100. That's exactly right. Why is God doing this? Is he just mean and this is punishment?
No, he said vengeance is mine. He told everybody he was gonna come back and have vengeance.
That's right. He's
It's
judging.
his and he's gonna take it back.
That's right. What else is he doing now?
Holding people accountable.
Holding people accountable. He's holding them to the judgment, right? Well, what else?
Back into the fire.
He's demonstrating his power
Power.
and his authority. You guys ever seen a tornado, like for real seen a tornado?
Yes.
It'll change your view of life. Okay? And that's just a fraction of what's going to be happening on the earth. Okay? I mean, you got burning fields all over. You got death in the ocean. You got stink. You got, the sky is probably gray if you can even see it.
Tarnation's not an easy way to go.
Right? So, the colossal object that hits the ocean could be a meteor. I don't know. I personally think it might be a meteor. Again, the first trumpet was hail, fire, and blood. But the meteor shower that precedes, or that we think that comes from, is small in comparison to what happens when the big one hit. Right? How many trumpets were there?
2.
No. Total. 7. And this is what?
2 seconds.
Oh my. So, the reference to the sea, as I already pointed out, is distinct from the freshwater resources of earth, such as lakes and rivers. It's an important note to make because those will be affected later in another trumpet judgment, which is what they're called. Okay? So, once again, let me go back up here. Once again, God is showing us his power through all of this. Now, speculation is that, from some teachers, is that the judgment falls onto the Mediterranean Sea. If this is localized in some way, then it's the Mediterranean Sea, which is also, which we're going to learn in Revelation 13, is now under the control of the beast. Okay? The whole Med area. Okay? This figure in tribulation has already arrived. Okay? And is taking power. We know that the beast who controls all commerce during the tribulation period will experience a great financial loss under this second trumpet judgment because it will dramatically affect the fishing industry and shipping around the world. I mean, it has to when a third of the sea becomes blood. Right?
It's gonna happen like in a blink of an eye, all that's gonna happen
No.
super fast.
No.
But it's gonna be like little things here, boom, boom, boom.
I don't know how back to back they're going to be. I don't know. But it's not going to happen immediately. There will be time in between. And I believe that because people think they can recover. Well, that must be it. Right? Let's keep having kids. Right? Let's keep building homes. It's all over now. Right? And again, this judgment makes us think about what happened when Pharaoh refused to let the Hebrews leave Egypt. In Exodus 7, the Lord commanded Moses to tell Aaron to take his staff and stretch his hand over the waters of Egypt so that they would become blood. Moses and Aaron obeyed the Lord, and the Nile turned to blood. Just as God punished Pharaoh in this way, so will he also punish the beast for suppressing those who refuse to worship the head of the revived Roman Empire. Okay, so somebody read verse 9 now.
1/3 of all things living in the sea died,
ships all over at all times. Now, typically they stick to certain pathways and waterways, right? But there's hundreds of thousands of ships afloat, okay? And so when this happens, not only does 1/3 of the sea life die, 1/3 of all the ships in the sea will be destroyed, which makes sense, right? So imagine that news report on CNN, right?
Peaceful protest.
Yeah, peaceful protest, that's right. But even without listening to what did you say, Bobby?
So nothing to see here.
Yeah, nothing to see here. You know, and we do know that the beast is going to lie to the people.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to continuously lie. And you know, even when we read these things in Revelation, though, I don't think we have an understanding of how bad pollution is going to be. I mean, by the way, environmentalists and marine biologists often talk about pollution and how it's hazardous to aquatic life. But did you realize, I learned this, every year, billions, with a B, of pounds of plastic are in the ocean.
There's a floating island made out of
Yeah.
plastic.
A billion, okay? Seals get caught up in fishing gear. They die trying to free themselves. Dolphins eat plastic wrappers for their next meal and die after eating them. And this doesn't even, it's not even a blip on our radar, okay? But multiply that by hundreds of thousands, okay? Fish eat deflated balloons, they choke to death. And what's described here is something much, much worse, something beyond our capacity to understand, okay? Hearing this, it's not hard to imagine how devastating things are going to look, okay? I wonder what lie people would believe. Because at that point, people want to believe something positive. They're looking for something positive. They're going to blame North Korea, I know. Anyway, okay. But when an object like a burning mountain crashes into the sea and 1/3 of the sea's marine life dies, it's going to change the entire world. Who knows? Okay? All right, let's keep going. So, let me see. This causes monumental death, destruction and hardship. The result of the third angel's trumpet is something John describes as a burning star. Okay, so I missed that. Let's go back. Yep. All right. Further, the event destroys 1/3 of the ships. Perhaps the weight of the falling object, the size of a mountain, sucks many ships into the water's depths. Who knows? At any rate, the impact of fishing and shipping industries will be catastrophic. Okay. Verse 10. Somebody read verse 10.
Then the third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from the sky, burning like a torch. It fell on 1/3 of the rivers and on the springs of water.
Notice that this is different than the sea. Okay? Now it's polluting fresh water. Okay? Drinking water, right. So I want you to think about something. Up till now, everything they've experienced is something that's natural to the earth. Right? In some way, shape, or form. You know, meteors, we've seen meteors. We know what they are. But the third angel blows his trumpet, and a great star fell from the sky. Now, again, we don't know what this is. But the point is that God is demonstrating not only his authority on the earth, but his authority over the universe. Okay? Because now he's bringing stuff from the universe onto the earth, probably in a demonstration of his authority. Okay? And it says it burned like a torch. It fell on 1/3 of the rivers and the springs of water. You know, I want you to think about how much fresh water is in the Great Lakes. Maybe that's where it is. Okay? I hope not. I don't want to be living up there. Well, I'm not. I'm already gone. What am I talking? All right? But it's interesting to think how it's going to affect all the fresh water. Now, too that burns up, entering in Earth's atmosphere, and goes over multiple areas, causing widespread pollution. Okay? This might be a reference again to a nuclear explosion. Why could it reference a nuclear explosion?
Contamination, it goes back to the
Okay, that's right, but how does that relate to how the waters might be polluted?
That's destruction.
Nuclear explosion.
Radiation
Fallout.
and nuclear fallout. Okay? So, again, I don't know, but that is very likely that nuclear fallout is, and we don't feel it, but it's killing us slowly when it happens. Right? That's right. The Great Lakes in the United States are a series of connected bodies holding 1/5 of all the world's fresh water.
Wow.
Do you know that? So when you think about that, just that alone would change the world. Okay? Regardless of the exact details, the target of this judgment is the water supply. Okay? Because people get their drinking water from rivers and reservoirs, melting snow caps, rain. But if 1/3 of our water supply is polluted, people will die. Period. Period. Okay? We talked about the Nile turning to blood. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when the Nile turned to blood, the Egyptians survived by digging into the ground. Anybody remember that? If not, just nod.
Yeah.
Okay? Why would that be impossible here?
Is it?
Huh?
In Florida,
Because it
water's
says it
right there.
contaminated the springs which come from underground.
Good job, Joe. If those are contaminated, it doesn't matter how far down you dig, it's all going to be polluted. So we can't even survive using that. And we know that it affects, because it says 1/3, we know that it affects more than one body of water. So it's likely, like I said, that people won't even be able to dig for drinkable water like the Egyptians did. Okay, so I want you to read Revelation 8:11.
The name of the star was bitterness. It made 1/3 of the water bitter. It made people die from drinking the bitter water.
Okay, so this falling star, which we don't know what it is, poisoned the water supply, and it is a judgment that we will have to go through, or those people will have to go through the tribulation. Now, the word wormwood, who's heard that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how bitterness is translated. Okay, wormwood. The passage describes that one of the trump judgments, in this case a burning star, falls from heaven, 1/3 of the rivers and springs of water. John names the star wormwood or bitterness. Okay, and it's named that because wormwood is a desert plant. Did you guys know this? That's what it's called, wormwood. And it's in the region in the Middle East, Syria, and Palestine. Where's all this stuff happening? Right? Okay? Israel, right? And so that's why it's named this. Okay? If you've ever wondered that. I don't know. I've watched movies where they make it scary by calling something wormwood, and it's specifically as a reference to this. Right? But it's related to this plant, which, by the way, it's an alcoholic drink called absinthe. Anybody heard of that before? You Navy guys probably have, right? And that's what it's made from. And it's added to alcohol. Absinthe can cause complete deterioration of your brain. Okay? So, here's the thing. Obviously, it's not when it's made into the drink. But absinthe itself can cause that. So, people are dying as a result of brain damage from drinking this bitter water. Okay? That's what it's implying. Because when the wormwood star fell into the waters, it poisoned the drinking water. Okay? Now, something I found that some Bible teachers believe, again, I don't know if I believe it or not, sounds kind of cool, While the judgment described here is literal, wormwood also symbolizes the bitterness of the consequences of sin. Okay? Now, in the Old Testament, I don't know if you remember this story, but the Hebrews were journeying near the Negev, and they came upon bitter water at Marah. Okay? And they complained to Moses. We can't drink this water. Who knows what happened?
Struck the rock.
No. God instructed Moses to throw a log into the water. And the log sweetened the water and made it able to drink. Now, how did God do that? I don't know. I'm not God. Okay? But here, you can't help but draw some type of a parallel. And the idea back then was to show the bitterness of sin. That's what it was teaching. Okay? Moses threw the log into the water became sweet, and similarly, because of Jesus' death on a wooden cross, okay, God can remove the bitter sins of life and make life sweet. Again, teachers could be reaching there. I like it regardless. Okay? I don't care who you are, it's kind of interesting. Let's move to verse 12. Somebody read verse 12.
Then the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and 1/3 of the sun was struck, and 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, and they became dark. And 1/3 of the day was dark, and also 1/3 of the night.
Okay, I want you to think about the consequences of this. Right? The sun is what? What is it?
Star.
It's a big, thanks Ed. It's a star. Right? What would happen if 1/3 of it is burnt up?
It'd be dark.
Dark? What else?
Cold.
It'll be unsurvivable cold. Okay? 1/3 of the moon. Again, this is showing God's power of the universe. Not just of the earth, but of the universe. Showing that He's in control of everything. 1/3 of the stars are blown up. Again, you guys know there's billions of stars, right? So 1/3. So what is this going to do to our atmosphere?
Mess it up.
Change, that's an understatement.
Cold and stinking and bitter water.
Okay, dark, cold,
Nothing will grow.
and guys, plant life, human life.
You have to remember, 1/3 of the day is now been shortened.
Yeah.
Now you have 1/3 less of light for creating any plant stuff.
Anything.
Photosynthesis.
Yep, nobody's getting sunburned. You're going to get freezer burn.
Yeah, and if you live in Alaska where it's dark anyway, all the time, they make you use sun lamps so you don't go crazy because without sunlight, you will eventually lose your mind. Yes, it's wrong.
You know what? I was watching, there was a documentary about a town, it's not in Alaska, but it's near the Arctic, about how they don't live like we do because of the way I mean, at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're out mowing their lawn.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, because you can. That's exactly right. But how bad would it be to live in a place with no sun?
6 months of dirt.
You know. Anyway,
Like,
so 3 angels have sounded their trumpet. We just heard from the 4th. All this stuff, terrible stuff to the earth, right? Terrible things are happening to the earth. But they're mainly focused on environmental things. Hail, fire, destruction of the sea, poisoning of fresh water. But again, stellar catastrophes are now happening. Darkness covering the 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, 1/3 of the stars. 1/3 of this naturally occurring light was plunged into darkness. And as was the case during Exodus, these things are being shown to be in God's control of nature and the universe. And we talked about how this would drastically affect the growth of anything on Earth. How it would affect solar power. Think about that.
There wouldn't be any.
How it would affect global climate, how energy would be affected. By the way, in Luke, just a reminder, 21, 25 through 26, says there will be signs in the sun and moon and stars. and on earth distress of nations in perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and waves, people fainting with fear and with foreboding of what's coming on the world. I don't know if you've ever read that before, but when you read that in the context of what we just talked about, that's different. Yes, ma'am?
There won't be no electric cars.
That's right. There won't be no electric cars. That's an understatement.
There will be, but there won't be room.
There'll be big paperweights.
Yeah.
And I'll be riding around in my truck. I'm kidding. I'm not going to be here again. Just kidding. That's right. Okay.
I wonder if we will be able to.
But for the powers of the heavens will be shaken on earth's most renowned scientists will not be able to explain what's happening. And panic will seize the earth's population. We're going to move on to verse 13. Somebody read verse 13.
Then I looked and I heard a single eagle crying loudly as it flew through the air. Terror, terror, terror to all who belong to this world because of what will happen when the last three angels blow their trumpets.
How many times did he say terror?
Three.
How many trumpet blasts are coming? Three. Now, we know that the 4 trumpets have blasted. We know what's happened on the earth. I don't know about you, but John heard the eagle. And if you hear terror, 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 I got 3 left. You got to be going, it can't get any worse. It can't. It can't.
They're gonna be saying, kill me now.
But guess what?
It's gonna get worse.
It's going to get worse. This is why it's called the apocalypse. The Apostle John reports that he heard an eagle cry loudly as it flew above him. Now, the word terror, or as it's translated in other translations, woe, indicates a condition of severe suffering. Okay? Or huge, terrible distress. It's interesting, again, that the eagle says it 3 times. I don't know, if I hear a talking eagle, I'm probably scared anyway. But as we learn later in Revelation, the first terror is an invasion of demonic locusts. Okay? For 5 months. We're going to talk more about that. The second terror involves fallen angels that kill 1/3 of mankind. An invasion of 200 million demonic horsemen. The third terror involves the rise of saints to henchmen, the beast that emerges from the Mediterranean region, and the false prophet in Jerusalem. Now, just to finish up, this doesn't work real well. The King James Version translates the English word angel instead of an eagle, okay? And the Greek word is called etau, all right? And it refers to an eagle or a similar bird like a vulture. Could be vulture. What are vultures symbolic of? No, cartoon. No, kidding. But yes, vulture. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. There you go, a lot of Gen Xers in here, all right? But vultures and buzzards circle dead things, right? And this is the same word that's used in this part of Revelation. And the Greek term typically translated angels, angelos, as seen in the most other verses in this chapter. So there's different interpretations of this word. Just wanted you to know that. And that brings us to the end of chapter 8. In chapter 9, we're going to jump into the 3 chairs. No! I'll tell you, honestly though, it was nice having a break for a little bit. It was I love to teach, but it was nice having a break. Anybody have comments, questions, anything you want to share? Did you learn something? Yeah?
Can you imagine like the faces of the people after the first trumpet sound from after everything has gone through, after the first trumpet when Christ returned and raptured his church?
the shofar.
Yeah.
Because it means, that's why I spent so much time on it.
Well, and like the world
Yep.
right now, they don't have a clue. Like as Christians, as the church, Jews, they know the meaning of it. They understand. We understand the meaning of the shofar,
Yep.
or the trumpet sound. But the world doesn't know that.
Yep.
But when Christ comes, they will hear that trumpet sound and they will know.
You know, what's crazy is before I did Bible study myself, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. You know, that's the only way we learn it. And yet, churches today, a lot of times aren't teaching. They're not having these Bible studies. They're not learning what it says. And so even believers won't know this. I'll tell you something funny real quick in the line. I was on a cruise ship. That's not the funny part. See, I'm a sailor. Look at that. But I was on a cruise ship, and at the table we were sitting at, you have table names, right?
Yeah.
And every night you eat with that same group of people. And on our table were Jews. Okay? This Jewish lady and her daughter. And she was eating bread, and she's looking at me, she's like, "Don't tell my rabbi." I'm like, "How am I going to tell your rabbi?" But, because it was Holy Week. But we're talking, and I start talking to her about Judaism. And she looks at me and she goes, "How do you know so much about Judaism?" And I said, "Because it's my heritage too." And I start telling her all this. She had no idea. She's like, "So we're the same." I said, "Yes, ma'am, we are the same."
Yep.
So if you ever wonder why we should support Israel,
Yep.
okay, Israel is our lineage. We are New Testament Jews. Yeah. People don't know that. So, all right, let's pray. Father God, we thank you once again for the time together, for your word, how it teaches us what we need to learn. I thank you for everybody here tonight. I praise you for their faithfulness. I just pray that you would bring us back safely next week.